Thank you for joining us, everyone, today. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sahil. I'm the Partnerships Manager at the Big Give. This is the Christmas Challenge 2020 Ask the Panel webinar. With us today, we have 3 of the award winners from last year. And we're very thankful for them for joining us and taking the time to speak to us today. It's very much appreciated. Just going to lay out some house rules at the start, just so you all understand how the webinar is going to work. All of the attendees are on mute. So if you have any questions for the panelists, please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you would like to introduce yourselves or pose any comments, please put them in the chat function on the right-hand side. Please make sure that is set to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see what you're saying. The format of the webinar is that each of the panelists will give a short 5-minute presentation on an aspect of their campaign from last year. And then after they've finished presenting, we'll open it up to Q&As and we'll pick up questions that you've been putting in the Q&A box and ask them to the panelists. So I will let the panelists introduce themselves. I'll let Julia go first, then Francis, and then Martha, and then I'll take it back and introduce the first panelist.
Thanks, Sahil. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here today. I'm Julia Strong. I'm the fundraising advisor for Hamlin, Fistula Uk. For anyone that's not familiar with our work, we're a small charity that exclusively supports the work of Hamlin Fistula Ethiopia, which is headquartered in Addis Ababa. And we operate a group of 6 NGO hospitals to treat women that have suffered from devastating childbirth injuries. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Francis Christella. I have been working for a charity called Shakespeare Schools Foundation. I now just work for them on a consultancy basis and am kind of running this campaign for them this year. The charity is a cultural education charity. We work with schools right across the UK using kind of theatre and literature to improve the confidence and life skills of the young people that they work with. We work with all sorts of schools, including SEN schools and pupil referral units. And our major project is the Shakespeare Schools Festival, which is an annual festival where young people come together to present abridged Shakespeare plays within their community. So that's the project that we're fundraising for in this year's Big Give as well. Thanks.
Hi everyone, so my name is Martha Wood and I am the Marketing and Fundraising Officer here at the Bendrigg Trust. So we're a small charity based up in Cumbria, just on the outskirts of the Lake District, and we're a specialist outdoor residential centre for people with disabilities. So we provide all kinds of accessible activities, going caving, climbing, canoeing, cycling, everything fun you can think of. So we're looking forward to having lots of people coming back to us soon, hopefully.
Great, thanks. And thank you all for introducing yourself. And just to reassure Martha, your sound is coming loud and clear now. Great. Yeah. And we also have Alex Day from the Big Give here. He's the director. He's joined our other couple of webinars. So he's also at hand to answer any questions. Without further ado, I will let Julia kick us off, and she's going to be sharing some slides, and she will be talking about how a small charity can maximize limited resources and social media outreach.
Great, thanks Sahil. So I'm just going to share my screen now because I've got a few slides to share with everybody. There we go, hope they're showing okay. Well, thanks very much for inviting us to be here today. It's excellent to be here. We took part in the Christmas Challenge for the first time last year, and I'm going to be speaking today about how, as a small charity, we work to maximise our limited resources and use social media for the first time, really, to support and meet our fundraising goals. So To kick off, to briefly introduce Hamlin Fistula UK to anyone who's not familiar with our work, we're a small charity that exclusively supports the work of Hamlin Fistula Ethiopia, which is headquartered in Addis Ababa. So we operate 6 NGO hospitals to treat women that have suffered from devastating childbirth injuries, including obstetric fistula. So an estimated 1,500 women in Ethiopia suffer from fistula every year, which leaves them severely incontinent. In many cases, fistula can be repaired with a single surgery. So each year across our hospitals, we're working to provide free life-changing surgeries to around 1,500 women. We're a small charity, but we're part of a bigger international group of charities. So here in the UK, our turnover is around £500,000 a year, and we have 2 part-time staff members, including myself. So how did we get started with the Christmas appeal? So the appeal really gave us the opportunity to establish and try out a range of digital fundraising channels for the first time, and to strengthen our relationships with major donors as well. So ultimately, we were really delighted that we beat our online fundraising target for the campaign by about 200%. So it was a really good outcome for us. As it was the first time that we participated in a digital fundraising campaign, it was really important for us that we set a realistic fundraising target. So that was one of the first things that we thought about. Hamlin Fistula UK had only recently begun a more focused programme of fundraising. So we really needed to kind of also carefully consider how we were going to go about sourcing our match funding as well. So as it was our first campaign, we decided to go for the lowest target amount to participate, which was £1,500 last year. And we looked at engaging with our trust and foundation supporters as potential match funders. As we also had limited resources to invest in terms of budget and team time, we decided to focus our approach on social media and email, and also to use the campaign as our own incentive to get these channels up and running for the charity. So digital fundraising wasn't something that we had done before. So once we knew we were accepted into the Christmas challenge, we started to think about the new channels that we were going to need to set up. We had even only recently launched our new website and Facebook page in February last year. So it was a really good opportunity for us to look at getting the basics in place. So we set up a new Instagram page, and we made sure our Facebook and Twitter pages were in order. So with such a small team, we knew that planning would be key. So we developed a communications schedule covering all the digital channels we'd be using to really plan what content and materials we were going to need in order to prepare them in advance. To boost our resources, we engaged a volunteer to increase the number of regular posts on our social media pages and start to attract more followers. To save time, we used Hootsuite, which was extremely useful for scheduling multiple posts across many channels. And we also began testing a really small number of paid for boosted posts on Facebook to help to attract some followers to a targeted audience. We didn't have an e-newsletter set up before we did the campaign, so we used this as a reason to get it going. So we really focused on lead generation and sourcing email addresses from approved sources, and we added an email sign-up form as a landing page on our website, which was very helpful for that. And we used MailChimp to design a new kind of branded e-newsletter to use in our marketing materials moving forward. And just finally here, developing partnerships was something that really helped us to extend our reach online during the campaign as well. So we liaised with some of our larger sister charities internationally to get their online support. And we also reached out to a number of UK-based organisations in our sector, in the maternal health sector, to ask them to support us by making posts during the campaign. So when it came to actually implementing the campaign, it was really important to ensure that we had a compelling story to tell across our social content. And we also economized by using content that we already had. So we decided to create social posts of a patient's journey through their time at the hospital and having surgery using Crello, which is a free resource and very useful for creating professional looking social media designs. These were all branded and used really kind of strong patient focused images. We didn't have a lot of video content, but we used that where we could. And we also really looked at what other charities had done in the campaign the year before to get inspiration. So with a small team, we made sure that we'd lined up all of our comms materials in advance. And we also made sure that there was a really clear online path on our website to get to the Big Give Donate page. So we redesigned our homepage and we also added a new page to our donations section. Finally, postal mailing to our offline supporters was also really important to let them know that the campaign was coming up. And that did provide a fair amount and source of our income during the actual campaign itself as well. So finally, just to wrap up here, some of our kind of key takeaways. So in total, we raised £9,500 during the campaign. So this included £3,000 in our pledged and champion funds, and then £6,500 that we raised online during the campaign week. Our initial target online was £3,000, so we were really pleased to beat that. So some of the key takeaways for us were to really think about the number of social and digital channels you have available to you and what's realistic for you to manage in the time that you've got available. To make sure that you plan a really compelling story and donor journey for your audience and prepare those posts in advance. To use free online resources where you can and where it makes sense. So for example, using Hootsuite, Crello or MailChimp. And also we'd really recommend having a range of messages available for your social posts during the campaign week. So for example, in case you hit your target really early on day 2, you want to have those messages ready to encourage your supporters to keep on giving. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julia. That was very interesting. I remember when we sort of had your initial award day come in for me, the message that was how you use your networks. So that was really inspiring to see how a small charity can use its networks and actually reach a much larger audience. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of that.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Francis Christella from the Shakespeare Schools Foundation. Francis, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thanks, Sahil. And thanks, Julia. I've been taking some notes myself, which is really brilliant. I'm very impressed to see what you guys managed to achieve last year. And really great to have some of those really practical things around Hootsuite, setting up your kind of digital campaign, because I think that for us certainly is also a really big part of it. I also want to reiterate what Julia said, set everything in advance. You will be amazed at how little time if it's your first time, you'll be amazed at how little time you have during the campaign week to think. So make sure you've done all the thinking in advance so that during the week you can do the doing, if that makes sense. I'm going to talk a little bit about reaching out to new audiences and generating new donors. Like us, I'm sure many of you will often be speaking to the same donors and asking the same donors for money over and over again. And those kind of core donors are incredibly important and incredibly important to this campaign as well. I absolutely cannot pretend that we are able to run our Christmas Challenge campaign without the support of our really kind of closest circle of supporters. But I also think that the Big Give is a really great opportunity to reach out to new donors and to kind of offer an entry point for new donors to get to know your charity, understand the impact that you have, and then and a starting point to build that relationship and bring them closer in, and hopefully to give again another way or through the big give the following year, however you see fit. And as an entry point, it's just a great opportunity. The hugely compelling offer of being able to have their donation go twice as far as it would otherwise is a massive incentive for first-time donors. And that's why it's a big part of the message of the campaign in general. And we've always made it really the heart of our own messaging as well, that this doubling of every donation online matched by the champion and pledge funds just has an incredible impact. So that's a little bit of advice. In terms of generating new audiences and reaching out to new donors, I always like to think about the advocates that we have within our network in order to help us do that. So this is kind of like a fundamental fundraising principle, and I'm sure you kind of think about it in all sorts of ways, but with the big give, you have a real opportunity to be offering, hopefully you've got enough kind of capacity to create some really nice content that you can offer advocates to help spread the word. And again, that doubling of donations is a really nice ask for other people to be able to make on your behalf. So in the planning process, and again, with a decent amount of preparation, it's really good to think about where are your advocates within your network. There are some really obvious things like your trustees, your patrons, your existing donor base. These are people that really understand the value that you as a charity have and the work that you do has. But I think it's also good to be a little bit more imaginative and think who else within the kind of sphere of the charity could be an advocate and understands the value of what you do. So I think it's really nice to think also about how service users or customers or beneficiaries themselves can be advocates on your behalf. It can be a kind of tricky territory, asking beneficiaries to kind of advocate on behalf of the charity. So you obviously have to take it on a case-by-case basis, but it's worth really thinking as broadly as possible about who you can ask to support the campaign. For example, at Quorum Shakespeare Schools Foundation, the beneficiaries are kind of teachers and students across the UK, but schools are in a way also the customer. They make a financial contribution to participating in the festival, and these are the people that get kind of the hands-on benefit. And so teachers and schools have been really valuable advocates for us in talking to donors in the Big Give campaign, in telling the story about how we support their students to have the outcomes that we know that they do. So that's one example of how we've been able to kind of work with schools to share the message. And they can talk with a really authentic and genuine voice about the impact that they see our work having on young people. And that makes for obviously very compelling content for the campaign. So be imaginative. I think also try to be imaginative in how your advocates can talk about your charity and encourage people to engage with the Big Give. The more exciting and interesting content that you can give to people to kind of share on your behalf, the better. And that might be the case of kind of imagery and things like that for them to share on social media, but it's also just about kind of the stories that you can plant in their minds that they might be able to share also on a slightly more informal basis. That's not to say that, again, the more prepared you can be, the better. And we tend to send very clear kind of copy and paste information to people that they can then share. It's great asking someone to kind of send out a tweet on your behalf, but if you write the tweet for them and make sure that they have access to an image that they can use as well, they're going to be much more likely to do that. So don't be afraid to feed people very, very specifically what you want them to share and make life really easy for them. So that's a little bit about how we work with a really broad range of advocates to help spread the word about the Big Give. And in last year's campaign, we found it really effective with quite a large number of new donors coming on board to support our campaign. There's just one thing, the final thing I want to say is kind of around the nuance of the different comms that you might be sending out, and to really imagine what existing donors might need to hear and what new donors might need to hear, and think about your different channels. So your website will kind of have a lot of people coming to it, and you want that to have really kind of full and yet somehow concise information about the Christmas challenge and what you're fundraising for and why that's really important. And your e-newsletter is probably for people who already know how important you are. So you're going to give slightly different information there from something like perhaps your social media posts or even your paid social posts, which are going to be specifically targeted at attracting people who have never heard of your charity and are just scrolling through their newsfeed to kind of become interested in your charity and find out more about what you do and then potentially support the campaign. So really think about that, and I'm going to say it one more time, do all of your thinking and writing and have those bits of copy that you're going to need across the campaign prepared, so it's really a matter of copying it into its new context, tweaking obviously to make sure it's really relevant to the specific audience, but that you're not trying to draft and redraft and get someone to sign something off on the Tuesday at 11:45 because the campaign's about to start in 15 minutes. So yeah, that is absolutely the main takeaway, is be as prepared as possible. And I hope these other ideas around building a broad network for the campaign has been useful. I'm really happy to answer questions at the end as well.
Thank you very much, Francis. That was really, really great to hear from you, especially from a charity that has taken part in the Christmas Challenge a couple of times now, and just seeing how you're still wanting to get new donors in and not just relying on your existing donor base, even though they are still very supportive of your campaign and you're very grateful for their support. And your tips at the end about planning in advance is a great segue into Martha's presentation now. Martha from the Bendrigg Trust will be talking about how they plan their campaign, which they won the overall award for last year. I'll leave it to you, Martha, now.
Thank you. Thanks, Sahil. So I'll probably be repeating a lot of the points that the guys have made, but we, Bendrigg first started the Big Give Christmas Challenge in 2017, but 2019, last year, was our most successful campaign to date. So we had a target of £12,000 and we managed to raise just over 17,500, which was really incredible for us. A really successful year, and we believe this was partly down to just having some absolutely incredible supporters, really loyal supporters, but also there was 2 of us on the team instead of 1, so instantly kind of doubled the time that we had to be able to plan and prepare everything. You can't really plan and prepare everything enough, I don't think. As a fundraiser, talking to other fundraisers, I think we all know that time is something we don't always have a lot of, and it does take time to get everything prepared ahead of the challenge, but it is worth it if you get it right and meet your target. So I'm just going to share some of the things that we've learned over the years and things that we do that we find really helpful. So hopefully you'll find it helpful too. So the first thing is just to keep it in mind throughout the year. So it's now a fixture in our fundraising calendar, and we really keep it in mind in the months leading up to the challenge. so that if we do get people approaching us about doing a collection or a raffle in aid of Bendrigg, we'll tell them about the challenge and see if they'd be happy to actually make that donation during that week. And usually when you tell them, that it's going to be match funded, and that the impact of that donation will be doubled, they're more than happy to do that. So that's a really nice pointer to keep note of. The next point might seem really obvious, but choosing the right project. So the guys have mentioned a lot about content creation, and making sure that the message is really strong, and part of that is just having the right project behind that. So it just needs to give donors a real sense of what impact the donations are going to have, and don't be afraid to spell it out either. £20 will achieve this, £50 will achieve this, and actually if we meet the target together, then this is what it's going to achieve. The next point I've got is playing to your strengths. So look at the strengths within your team. My background's very much in marketing. So that meant that I focused mainly on like the content creation and the digital marketing side of things, whereas my colleague had built up a really great rapport with our individual regular donors and corporate partners. So we focused on these two areas to really play to our strengths. It can be quite tempting sometimes to come at it from every angle, but it's good. I think Julia mentioned about being realistic about what you're going to be able to achieve with the staff and resources that you have. So doing this will really give you the best chance of meeting your target. The next point I have is about making a donations plan. So we usually just get a good old spreadsheet together and make a plan of where we think donations are going to come from. So this is usually based on data from previous years. So things like how many new donors we've had each year and how much that's raised, how many existing donors gave again in 2018, and all things like that. And then once we've got that list together, we look at what the shortfall might be and what we can do to try and make up the rest of that target. So it might be through approaching our corporate sponsors, seeing if local schools can get involved, and we make an estimate of what that will amount to, and you want that to be as close to your target as you possibly can. Then we created an action plan. So we really wanted to reach as many people as possible and create really high levels of engagement across our different digital channels so that we could target different audiences, and build momentum online. So we broke an action plan down into 3 stages. So there was the pre-campaign, the campaign week itself, and then the post-campaign as well. I'm just going to focus on the pre-campaign because we've not got a huge amount of time, but basically reiterating what Francis said about creating the content ahead of time. So everything from writing emails, preparing your newsletters on MailChimp, writing your blog articles, videos, photos, everything prepared beforehand. And then we do usually use Hootsuite to schedule things, but as the guys mentioned, sometimes you might be taken by surprise and meet your target really quickly, in which case you need to change your message in some of those. So we just had a Word document with everything laid out, the posts laid out of what we wanted to put on each thing. And then we had somebody who was designated to just posting that throughout the week. So once the content's created, it's really great because it means that you can send that ahead of time to your affiliates, so anybody that's linked with the charity, suppliers, even local businesses, local schools, and it just means that you're getting a really cohesive message and that your branding is really cohesive throughout the challenge, and having that reach across lots of different platforms. I think, like Francis mentioned, just having more people sharing that within their networks just really helps to create a huge reach and much more momentum for the campaign. And yeah, so we really believe that the planning and preparation before the campaign is what's ultimately led to the success of the challenge in 2019. So we would really recommend putting in the time and effort before the week just to ensure that you've got every chance of success, and do make use of the Big Give resources and materials as well. They give some really good advice. There's some great templates and guides on there for anybody who's just starting out, and if you wanted some new ideas as well, there's always the other charities that have done things in previous years. It's great to reach out to people and have a chat. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I wish you all the best of luck for your campaigns this year, and please feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you very much, Martha. That was really, really great to hear from you. as you said, planning is so important, as Francis has also said. We always say charities that do well are the ones that have always planned and been organized before the campaign starts. So it's very interesting to hear how you sort of had different comms lined up for different eventualities so they could be more responsive during the campaign week, because that often goes very quickly and it's quite hectic sometimes. We've been receiving quite a lot of questions from you, which is great to see. So we'll start with a Q&A session. The first question actually is incidentally maybe one for Alex. It's we've had a couple of questions about champion outreach. So Joy Stevens asked, did you have any success with building relationship with your champion funders? Did you do anything to reach out to them during the pre-launch and during the campaign phase? And did award winners engage with their champion in their campaign, and was it beneficial, and did it make any much difference? I'd just like to, before I throw this to Alex, I'd just probably like to caveat that we sort of being more open with how we're sharing the champion comms, which are actually this year than last year. So you will have received the email this week notifying you of how your champions want to be contacted this year, which we didn't do last year, but I'll leave it to Alex now to take this question.
Yeah, sure. So, and it would be really interesting to hear from the panelists as well about engagement with the champions. But I suppose to set the context, we work with 20 or so different champions, trusts and foundations, companies, individuals who are fortunate to have come into some wealth through one way or another. And across that kind of group of 20 champions, there's a huge spectrum of those that are very kind of happy to be named and talked about publicly, all the way through to often individuals who you don't want that kind of public recognition. And so we try to be as respectful and as conducive as we can to what the champions want in terms of, firstly, publicity, but secondly, engagement with charities. I think, to be completely candid, some of our champions are concerned about kind of just being inundated with lots of communications, invites to events, update reports, and there is that concern. So some of our champions do like the kind of arm's length relationship that the big give can provide them, I suppose. But others are really happy and are really engaged and want to and actually actively want to build those relationships with the charities. So my main kind of headline point here is to check the emails that Sahil sent this week, which outline our champions' expectations of what they would like from champions, both in terms of publicity and relationship with the charities. And I would definitely say, if the champion is up for being in touch with you directly, to definitely reach out to them, to thank them. And then, who knows? There's been instances where champion relationships have led on to further funding in the future. Not all the time, but that has certainly happened. So yeah, interested also to hear from the panelists about whether you've had much interaction with your champions or not. Julia, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So for the reasons that you were just talking through last year, we didn't really have any engagement with our champion funder, but we've received the email from Sahil about our champion funder for this year, which is Ethiopia Aid, and we're really excited to be working with them. And so during the course of the campaign, yeah, we're absolutely looking forward to kind of reaching out and establishing contact with them. So this year, yes.
Anyone else want
Francis,
to?
what's your experience been, Francis?
I was going to pass. I've actually not ever had much contact with our champions. I've always tried to thank them, but that's as far as we've got. And I think this year it might be the same. So I can't say much to that, I'm afraid.
Great. Martha, do you have anything to add, or just?
I was just going to say, so we were lucky enough to have the champion funding last year as well. So again, just reached out to say big thank yous and try and keep them posted with what we were doing and what the money was going towards. So yeah.
So actually, I want to highlight a question that's just come in first, is from Jane Carter. Is that, did any of you have success in getting donors who send checks switching to online donations. Have any of you had like any techniques that you've managed to convert those sort of offline donations into online donors? Anyone want to jump in? Feel free.
Yeah, I'll answer that. So we, I guess a lot of our donors are online, interact with us online, so it's something that we've started doing more and more of, and I think the industry, I guess, is definitely moving more online, so it's trying to just keep up with that. I think through our social media pages, one thing I'd really like to say is just that it's almost, you know, the week itself is really good about having that interaction, but it's actually having it throughout the year as well, and really building those relationships with people to keep them involved with what you're doing. So the more that we've actually grown our network over our social platforms, the more success we've seen with our online giving. And it's just, again, just building that relationship, building the rapport, and keeping people involved with what you're doing throughout the year as well.
Yeah, just to kind of echo what Martha said and add to it. I mean, from Hamlin Fistula UK's point of view, we had a very low numbers of followers because our channels were all quite new, so it was a little bit easier for us to see. But as a result of our postal mailing that we sent out to our mailing list, it really did help bring some new supporters online. So the campaign definitely helped us out with that. So yes, I don't have any numbers that I can share, but it is definitely something that we saw happening. Yeah.
Francis, I know you've taken part a couple of times. Have you had much success in converting those offline donors into online donors in the past?
Yeah, and I'll reiterate, it's just really important to get that message right, because the big give is specific in that donors do have to give online. Some people you will never convert, you know, like if you've got someone who's giving from a family trust, for example, they're not going to probably be able to do that online. They'll be doing that via checks, and you'll be able to kind of engage with them in a different time of year. The big give really has to be through the online process, but we have donors from like new and old giving to the big give. So there are certainly those who would usually, you know, write a check who are very happy to kind of get on the internet and do it that way as well.
Great. The next question is slightly more technical. It's in relation to Hootsuite. So we've had a couple of questions about Hootsuite from Cheryl Claxton and Laura Carr. So any of the panelists that have used Hootsuite, do they find that it doesn't perform well in the algorithm these days? And do they have any alternative suggestions to Hootsuite? And Laura Carr says they find it difficult to tag and manage different character restrictions on Hootsuite and often schedule separately on different platforms. Has any of the panelists experienced any issues with Hootsuite, or do you use other sort of grid management tools?
Yeah, I can jump in there. Again, because we had quite low numbers of followers and it was something that was new for us, I can't really comment on the algorithm issue. So I can't give an answer to that, I'm afraid. But in terms of managing character counts, for us, it's just a case of making those little tweaks to the text that you're using in each individual channel within Hootsuite. And as you've pointed out, it's not always possible to use exactly the same text across the 3 different channels that you might be using there. So just to make sure you make those edits in Hootsuite and that everything can then get published properly. It's still possible to use Hootsuite that way rather than manually posting on each individual channel.
Great. Yeah, we use TweetDeck, but do any of the other panelists do you use any other social media management tools?
So we tend to use Hootsuite as well, but I find it quite difficult, particularly for Instagram, because I think you can now obviously add lots of different photos to your posts, whereas on Hootsuite I think it only lets you do one. So we've just found that using it for Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, I think, are the three that we tend to use it for the most. But yeah, there's always going to be an element of having to kind of shrink things down to fit the different character things. So I think it's just trying to get the same message in lower characters. So yeah.
We've had a suggestion as well from Lucy Fenton in the chat function. They use Sprout. I haven't heard of that one, but maybe that's a one that charities can explore as well. Sorry, Francis, you were going to jump in as well.
Only to say that I can't add much particularly. I have a very excellent colleague who is all over this stuff. I'm sure my question is coming. I'm going to be able to really offer something very, very insightful in a moment.
Well, we've actually had one directed specifically to you, but I also just wanted to say that we have a webinar on Wednesday next week, which is specifically about social media. And so if you're really interested in diving into that in a bit more detail, that promises to be a really great webinar, and the person answering that will running that webinar for us will probably be able to have much more technical knowledge than we do on good tools to use. So can you remind us of the time and where people can sign up for that?
Yeah, so the time is next Wednesday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And if you go to your campaign dashboard and click on the webinars article, there's a link to the Eventbrite page where you can sign up for the webinar. It will be delivered by Teresa Leticia from Lightfall, who's kindly stepped in for James Pete, who has had to unfortunately step out of the webinar. Next question, actually, Francis, this may be one for you, is some charities have been asking about having a landing page on your website versus directing donors directly to the Big Give campaign page. Do you have a specific landing page on your website, or do you just direct donors to
this? Is great because I feel very strongly about this, and my colleagues know. Yes, we do always have a page on our website about the Big Give Christmas Challenge, and it's really important because in the lead up to 12 p.m. Tuesday, that is where you're going to actually be able to give good information about your campaign and and what any support is going towards. And I don't know if I just read it or heard it from someone, we do launch our kind of comms around the campaign well in advance. Obviously start slow, but yeah, we definitely kind of do a little bit of a countdown and give the pre-warning to our existing donors and anyone who comes across us that the campaign will be happening in December. But it's really important that at 12 p.m. on Tuesday, you switch all the links and all your social media from that point on that takes people directly to the Big Give website so that they can have one less click to that credit card information section, to put it really crudely. So yeah, absolutely. We have a web page, but as soon as donations are live, we send everyone directly to the Big Give, and there's, I mean, you can get across all the information that you could possibly want on your Big Give page with the lovely images and quotes and things. So that's my advice.
Yeah. For charities, there's no harm in putting a landing page on your website just in case donors end up on your website. So just make it as easy as possible then for them to direct to the Big Give campaign page. So yeah, if you can, we always recommend putting a landing page on your website as well. We did have a question about scheduling posts. So in terms of scheduling, what do you look at as too much posting / emails? What's to the press? How often do you put out something in advance of the campaign? Is it like a couple of times every week and then ramp up more as the campaign nears? Maybe Julie, you can start off here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was the first time that we were doing everything last year, obviously. In terms of postal outreach, we did a save the date kind of mention in a newsletter that was going out to supporters at around October time. And then we sent a dedicated mailing just on the Big Give to our full mailing list in around mid-November, I think it was. We tried to time it quite carefully so that it was just a reasonable amount of time before the campaign kicked off, not too far in advance. And then in terms of emails, I think that we decided to send out 4 emails during the campaign. So that was one, save the date beforehand, kick-off email on the first day of the campaign, a midpoint email, and then a kind of a wrap-up thank you message at the end. So we don't have a detailed segmentation on our mailing list, so it was quite straightforward for us to do it that way.
Martha, did you have sort of a schedule set up on how often you were contacting donors before the campaign started?
Yeah, so our emails were very similar to Julia's, really. The pre save the date, the day of the kickoff, the middle and the end. On social media, we did 3 posts a day, which we found to be enough. So we did one in the morning and kind of had a good balance between thank yous and asking as well. That's really important, just to make sure that you're thanking the people that are donating and then asking the people that haven't yet to do so. The link for the Big Give was on every single post that we did. And yeah, just kind of mixed it up really between some posts that were photos and text, some that were videos. We did some live videos, which were a really good quick win for us, with an update of the total, and then again at the end of the day an update of the total and an ask for people as well. So yeah, that's what we did.
And yeah, another question is about donation channels. So I expect you will have other donation channels on your website. Question is, how did you deal with that? How did you direct donors to the website instead of using other donation sort of mechanisms you have on your website? Yeah, Francis, do you have that on your website, another sort of donate button that you put redirect on or something?
Yeah, we don't actually find that a problem, to be honest. People donate through the Big Give because that's where you're sending them at every step. So I've never had like a big increase in kind of our online donations during the Big Give week. So I think, again, it's for just being really clear about how people give, how they can make sure that their donation is doubled, and that is by doing it via the Big Give website.
And Martha, have you had, sorry, Francis, you can add anything?
I just want to add one thing about the previous question around timing of and volume of kind of comms. What we find is really useful is the timing in the emails that go out at different kind of milestones throughout the campaign. So last year, we actually didn't send out our email on the Tuesday to say it's now live. We delayed it until we were at about 30% of our target for the campaign from our kind of like closest donors, our people that we were like felt really confident saying, can you just go out on like Tuesday afternoon and please make your donation then, because it'd be really helpful. And we waited before we did our kind of big email solace out to the whole newsletter list. We waited till we were about 30% so that people, that old kind of behavioral economics thing where people feel much more confident about donating to something if they see that other people have already done so and it's kind of on the way and it looks like a confident campaign. So that is one other thing that another tip I would say, to kind of not just time it in terms of the days and the hours, but in terms of the trajectory of the fundraising thermometer.
Absolutely, that is some really good advice and very clever to sort of wait for actually donations to come in organically, if you will, and then do your mail out. Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us, Francis. Martha, sorry, going back to the other question is, do you have a donation link on another donation link on your website, and did you have to adjust it in any way?
Yeah, so we have a donation link through to our charity checkout page, and last year we actually didn't change that, which was a little bit of an oversight. And you know, one thing is you spend a lot of time kind of writing and preparing these things, but there are always going to be people who just kind of go, oh yeah, I'll donate, and then just click. And we did have that happen a couple of times. So yeah, it's definitely something we'll be doing this year. We did make sure that we did it on our social channels. So all of the kind of website links and things like on Instagram and Facebook all went through to that Big Give challenge link. But yeah, definitely on the website, I would highly recommend it.
I think, yeah, it's quite easy to just adjust the link if you have a donate button and just point to the Big Give website for the campaign week. Yeah, we have a question for Julia. What is Crello? Yeah, what is Crello?
Yeah, it's a free website. I think it's crello.com, and it's basically a kind of online graphic design facility. It's totally free to use at the basic level, and it has kind of pre-available templates with all the correct dimensions and everything you need specifically for a Twitter post, for Instagram, for Facebook, for whichever channel you're using. And it has a number of elements already there for you to use, and it's super easy to create basic graphic designs yourself using it, even if you're not a trained graphic designer. So if you have limited resources and you don't have a graphic designer in your team, then it's definitely something to look at.
Sharing that. Martha, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to add that as well as Crello, there is Canva, which is another website, and as a charity you can apply for a free pro account, and it's very, very similar, but it's super intuitive. There's some really good graphics and things on there, so that's what we tend to use for our posts and things.
Thank you for sharing that, Martha. Yeah, we use Canva as well, and we find it very intuitive to use and very creative. Maybe one for Francis, as they've taken part a couple of times, is that have you ever used paid social media advertising? Has it helped your campaign? I think before I let Francis answer this, I would like to caveat that we can't install like tracking or Facebook pixels on campaign pages. If you want to use social media advertising, we would advise that you create a landing page on your website, put the pixel there, and have that landing page obviously linked to your Big Give campaign page. But yeah, I'll let Francis answer.
It's a good one. We haven't actually used any paid social media on the Big Give in the past, but we had a Radio 4 appeal last week, and we did use it there. I'm yet to really dig down into the impact it had, but we felt like, again, that was quite a good campaign for bringing new donors into the charity and finding out about us. So we felt like some paid advertising was worth it. I didn't spend a hell of a lot, to be honest. I think I spent about £150 all up, but I haven't dug into the results. So I know, Julia, you mentioned you used it before. Maybe you have some more insight.
Yeah, we were very much at the early stages of testing it, so I can't give any kind of really comprehensive feedback, I'm afraid. I mean, we used it before the campaign to try and build the number of followers on our pages, so it wasn't actually something that we used during the campaign week. But this year, I think it's definitely something that we'll look at doing.
Sahil, I'd also just plug, or I'll say two things. Plug again the social media webinar on Wednesday, because we'll delve into a little bit into paid social there. And then also just to say, I think, as Francis has mentioned, with any paid for social, is start small and test and see what's working. So if you are going down that route, start small, allocate a small budget for each of your different kind of strategies with paid, and then see what return you're getting. And obviously then invest in, if you are going down the route of paid social, invest in the ones that are doing well. But you can be really smart in terms of targeting on social as well. So there is some good opportunities. But yeah, plug the social the webinar again on Wednesday.
Yeah, and Alex, just to confirm, do Google they have a charity grants, don't they, as well?
Yeah, you can also, Google Ads is a free grant for nonprofits. You just need to go through the application process, and I think you get about $350 roughly a day of free Google Ads. So that means that when if someone's searching for donates to a homeless charity and you're a homeless charity, you can bid on those key terms and it will return you higher up at the top of, when you search for something on Google, you'll see ads at the top of the results page. So yeah, there's a free Google Ads grant available for nonprofits.
Something for all the charities, because they did so well last year, is when you reached your target, was it still appealing to the public to give, keep on giving, or did they think that there was a job done? Before I let the panelists jump in, I'll probably say, if you are in receipt of champion funding, you're eligible for the Christmas Challenge Awards if you exceed your target. So that's one way to encourage donors to keep on giving if you hit your target early. But I'll let the panelists jump in here how you dealt with that very pleasant problem. Anyone want to jump in? Martha, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, I guess for us, because we had the champion funding, just what Sahil said, it was a really easy thing for us to kind of say, you know, just because we've reached the target, it doesn't mean that you don't need to keep donating, and if you do, we'll be eligible for this extra award. And also, you know, you can say, I guess with our project was a subsidy fund, so the more money we raise, the more people we can help. So it wasn't kind of if we raise £15,000, we're going to buy this. It was a project that the more we raise, the more impact it can have. So I guess just having those kind of key messages ready for when you hopefully reach your target that can go out is really helpful.
Yeah, I'd really echo the same thing that Martha's just said. I think when we hit our target, it was actually in day 2, so it was a lot sooner than we had anticipated. So that's another reason for having multiple messages ready to use in your communications materials. But yeah, we mentioned the awards, and also the same thing as Martha. We just highlighted how many additional people that we'd be able to support with surgeries over and above what we had originally said, and kind of really pushed our messaging that way.
Well said. I can't add much to that.
I do have a question for you though, Francis. Just finding it in the Q&A.
Sahil, while you find that, maybe just jump in on hitting targets. I think someone's asked a question around last year they hit their target and then donors were a bit annoyed that their donation wasn't going to be doubled because they tried to donate later in the campaign. I think the key thing here is probably, well, 2 things I would say is like really celebrate the success. You know, you hitting your target is a great thing, and so you know, you want to celebrate that with your supporters and still encourage them to give and say, you know, every penny counts. You know, we still welcome your donation, but also kind of before you hit your target is perhaps caveat your donor cons on the fact that it's on a first come first serve basis. So there is a limited amount of match funding allocated for your charity, so it's first come first serve. That the flip side of that really helps provide that urgency for people to give. So I've seen lots of charities use that kind of tactic in the past, if you like.
Great, thanks. Great, Alex, that's a good experience. We have a question from Lucy Fenton. Francis, can you tell us more about how you engage schools? What specifically did you ask them to do? What channels did you use?
Okay, yeah, we're in a good position because we have a very close relationship with all the schools who we work with on the festival. So my colleagues have kind of direct contact with them throughout the year via email. So, and kind of they have really like one-on-one relationships. So that is great. And as I said, they're the beneficiaries, really. They know the impact of the work that we do on the young people in their schools. So they're often very happy to kind of help shout about the fact that they're part of this great charity, that they kind of work with us, and they know that the more money we raise, the more we're able to subsidize their participation in the festival. So it's not that hard to get them on board. So they support us just through kind of putting it out across their social media channels. That's been the major way that they're able to kind of get the word out. And schools obviously have like very broad networks as well. So I think that's been really valuable. I hope that answers your question.
We are just out of time, but if the panelists don't mind staying on for a couple of minutes, I do have one question actually I would like to ask them that's come in is, find it again. It was about post-campaign. So this was from Thomas Pickford. He was just wondering about post-challenge campaigns and how the panelists try to continue momentum and maintain old and new relationships. Maybe Martha, you can, do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, so we, I guess throughout the campaign, every time we would receive a donation, if the person had opted in for marketing, we would sign them up to our e-newsletter and send them an email again of thanks. And at the end of the campaign, we'd email everybody to let them know, you know, how much it meant to us, again, to say a big thank you to everyone, and just really try and engage with them there and then. And we, you know, we kept posting, I guess, on social media afterwards and did videos of the staff team kind of thanking people. And yeah, just tried to kind of keep hold of that momentum for as long as we could, really.
Julia, have anything to add?
Yeah, just to jump in there, I think we sent a postal mailing out to full mailing list in the new year once we knew what the full results of the campaign were, to with all of our supporters and to thank them. And we also sent similar communications out to our e-newsletter list as well. So yeah.
Thank you all. I think, yeah, we've run out of time. I just want to thank all the panelists, Martha, Julia and Francis, for joining us today. It's been really interesting, and thank you for sharing your insights and experiences. We've had a load of positive comments from the attendees. Thank you attendees for joining us today and for engaging with the panelists. I just need to plug a couple of things. We will be sending out a pre-Christmas challenge survey next week and around on Tuesday. We really appreciate if you can complete the survey. It's not that long, it'll take you about 5 minutes to complete. What we're going to try and do is, from the results from the survey, is going to base our PR campaign. So the more information you give us, we'll be able to go out and really market the campaign and hopefully maybe feature some of your case studies or your charities in our PR campaigns. And also what we're committing to is that there'll be a random draw where we will donate £100 to 3 of the respondents of the survey. So that's an extra incentive to complete the survey. And I'd just like to plug again the webinar next Wednesday at 2 to 3 p.m. with Teresa Leticia from Lightful. It's on social media. We've had a load of social media questions today, so please do join that and ask a question to Teresa as well. With that all said and done, thank you all again for joining us today, and I hope you all have a lovely weekend. See you later. Bye.